Welcome back to Fixing Fans Farms. Today we have one sent in by John Modding. This is on Ravenport, and this is how his farm looks right now. At first glance, it's not so bad, but it does need some love and care, so let's see what we can do to it. If you want us to fix up your farm, all you have to do is fill out the form in the description down below. It'll be a Google Sheets form. All you have to do is go fill that out, send it to us, and we might fix your farm. As always, over 67% of you are not subscribed, so if you want to help a pickle out, then click that subscribe button to join the Pickle Jar community. Let's get on into it.
All right, Jake, so we went ahead, we wiped this one clean, and we're going to start with a fresh state, just like we did on the last one, just so we can try and get the elevations a little more accurate here, so that when we go and place those pastures in the grass, in the back there, they'll hopefully line up a little bit better with the farm.
We really contemplated just going with what the farm I'd already had, because it makes our life easier, but we just felt like we wanted to see the natural contour of this land before it was ever touched. I feel like that's a big part of what makes the difference in the farm build, is just trying to respect that topography as much as possible. And I have a feeling that if we didn't just revert this back, we would have gotten a little ways down the road on our expansion of this farm and regretted it and had to restart anyways. So first thing I want to do, King, is try and estimate where he had his driveway and his house and everything. So I'm going to refer to one of our reference photos real quick and then make just a temporary inlet for where I think that is roughly. So what about running it about along here roughly?
I think I like that plan. I'm going to go ahead and place the shed that was by the house here, roughly about there. I do believe that's the same shed. You just need entry into the shed right there by the house. My assumption anyways was that that's mainly what was used.
In his layout, this extended beyond his shed a little bit, and there was a little bit of a grass patch yet beyond the shed. I suppose we can try and keep true to that a little bit, but we'll figure it out. You know, if we need to tighten things up or whatever, we have the liberty to make those changes as we see fit. Yeah, I think that grain bin location where he had it previously, which is fairly near the house, would be better suited somewhere else. And if we did want to replace that grain bin with something, I think another shed of sorts. Maybe we just kind of adjust the location of some buildings here or add another one. But I definitely think we should move that grain bin away from the house.
All right, so we're restarting again. The only reason is there's a grain bin setup that we realized after we placed it. It is not exactly a functioning placeable that you would like to set on a hillside set. Now, if we were building on something much more flat, I'd be completely comfortable using that grain bin. However, this setup is not the flattest of areas to be setting a placeable that eats that much space in an area. Upon contemplating here, I think what we're going to do is we're going to change up the buildings just a little bit. I understand the decoration placement of the shed that was over here, and I get that old school feel, but it was not usable in any way, shape, or form. So I am going to switch it up, and I placed a completely different shed down that at least could be used for something, and we can get that older decor around it. By it in between the chicken coop there, I left just a little bit of space when normally I would try and squeeze that a little bit tighter. I try to separate that now and just get a different shed placement in which could at least be usable. All right, so we got the shed placed. It might not quite be at the exact same angle it was, but it's in there. We can make it work and we can kind of build around it. Now, like I said, I stuck with the highest point of elevation, which is this corner here, since we are building uphill. We ended up deciding on this bale barn. And again, this is some of the most challenging builds, is building on a hillside with this much incline. So we're going to have a lot of smoothing to do. So now what are you thinking, Jake? Should we kind of work our way up the hill?
Yeah, I think we should work up that hill. I think that's definitely the next step for us. I think what we'll want is some sort of path coming off of here that just leads up, meandering between these two barns, which can connect the sheds. And then that path can go back a little bit farther to the top side of hill, however far we need, and that's where we can have the stuff.
So I'm thinking, with that being said, we're going to figure out the placement of the the sheep pasture later. We need to figure out the cattle barn area. All right, so getting an aerial view now, we ended up getting our animal placements as far as our dairy barn there for the cattle, and it does have an open spot. It is the same barn that we used on the last build. It just seems to fit this one as well. So again, this is the Dusty Barn by JMF Modding. And main reason for it is, even though this silo doesn't necessarily work, we can place another silo there. It does semi-fit the older style theme of this farm, but it keeps things kind of intact with a brown fence that's going to match what we're going to do here for the rest of the farm. And we can place another harvester silo that does work right on this corner off of this barn where there is kind of a dead space right there. We can place another harvester there, keeping things sort of tight. And continuing off of here, we're going to have to kind of mark out a little bit. This one's a little more challenging because the pasture didn't exactly mark in like our horse pasture does. So I'm going to go a little bit wide on it. I sort of know where the edge of this is, and I'm just going to have to kind of mark it out, get close, and mark out for our fencing. And we're going to do a wood fence around this horse sheep pasture here as well. Again, matching the theme of just an older style building, kind of matching the rest of the theme of the farm. We ended up I had some pretty gnarly troubles, and it's the biggest thing is because it's a hill. I also did the same thing with Westby. So when I built on Westby, it was at an extremely steep hill. It was steeper than this, but you have to be wise in your choices of what you put and where and why. So I know that the John wanted himself some open pastures, so we did give him that. Now the white fence doesn't exactly fit our theme like I would like to, but I also got put into a very tough position of, do I match or do I actually make things look legit and look realistic? Now, yes, you would have an open pasture in here, but obviously there's limitations with FS19.
And overall, it's not bad. We're entering the leveling, painting phase here. And then we'll get into doing a little bit of detail work, adding trees and little detail pieces. And that'll be everything for this farm. We've got the bulk work done. At least the large building placement done. Now it's just going in and kind of cleaning up angles and adding detail. All right, King, what you say?
All right, my man. I think we're pretty much wrapped up with this one. It was a bit different. I know John really wanted us to go with a more older feel to this farm, smaller feel to this farm, which we did. We kind of enclosed things, tightened it up a little bit, reorganized some, I would say. I suppose we can start by the house area, huh?
Yeah, let's start up here. So the same house, the same building that he had originally chosen. Really, the only difference is we've added some detail work, some trees, some hedging, some pathways, plants, lighting, trash, just a bunch of detail work, really, just to kind of make the space feel actually lived in, give them a nice space back here to kind of come and relax for a backyard. That's really the only change here in this area.
Yeah, I did try to, we didn't put the fence back in, if any of you caught that from the beginning. There was a fence kind of going along right here. I didn't put that back in. I figured if John wanted that one back in, he could, but instead what I did is I just tried to kind of lay out some detail work along the house, make it look actually more like lived in, more used. And I continued that hedge work all the way down to kind of separate the backyard off a bit from the road, like you probably would in real life anyways, to create that natural separation as opposed to a fence. But if he wants it, he could add it back in. It's still in here.
Yep. And moving on from there, we have the main drive, which leads in the biggest change. There are a few of them, but big change is the grain bins. There's now 2 of them. It's a different set, and they're right over here to the left of the driveway.
So again, to kind of explain that, the other grain set that was here with the augers, it just takes so much space, and on a hillside like this where you want to leave the elevation as much as you possibly can and build into it to make it feel natural, that is not a placeable that you want to use at all. It made so much error when it came to flat space of where it was setting. I couldn't get that to fit naturally. So we place these 2 bins where you can get them to fit a little bit nicer. Johnny is going to have to get an auger now to use the auger for these bins, but they are usable. and it helps to fit in just a little more natural. And it kind of, even though they are closer to the house, they're usable in the sense where when you come in and unload, you can continue on through the second driveway there as well.
Right, and then continuing this direction, the chicken coop remains exactly the same. We did swap out this barn, which was previously just a decorative barn. We gave him one that actually has some function, but still fits the theme of what he was shooting for, as well as some older detail stuff here, because he did have some of that in his farm design when he told us he was going for a more old, a little more run-down farm.
Absolutely. And then moving on up the hill, put in the 150-foot shed as well, pretty much the same as what it was, mostly the same angle. It might be off just a little bit, but incorporating with that now as well, we did add a bale shed area here to help out with that as well. It's having a place to store something, and again, functionality. Don't get me wrong, I like the decoration packs, but the biggest thing you want to go for is functionality, especially on a farm on a hillside like this.
Exactly. Moving back into this space, we have probably one of the biggest additions to the farm, and that is the fairly good-sized cattle barn here. This barn was a bit of a pain to fit in. This cliffside was a bit of a pain, but overall, this is going to be a nice addition to the farm. I know he said he wanted cattle as well as sheep, so I think we definitely met that demand. One of my favorite parts of this farm is actually that meandering road coming up the hill to this top side portion with the cattle and sheep.
Absolutely. And again, the animals are kind of separated off as well, further away from the house. So again, if you would in real life, smell and whatnot is further away from the house.
The only downside of where they're currently placed is they're uphill of the house, which is not ideal for when it rains, but at least they're a good distance from the house.
This is true. Coming on back though, we also have the sheep pastures here as well, and just kind of coming up, working fences, and just a nice little spot here where you can have open pasture land. It seemed to fit in fairly well, and of course we added trees back into this space as well.
But overall, I'm pretty happy with the way this one turned out. It was a little challenging in some areas, but overall, the grade of this hill, as it's a challenge, it's also quite interesting and beautiful. You get a nice elevation change as you're coming down this way, and everything is stacked, everything is layered, and I think that's probably my favorite thing about this design. What do you think? What do you like? Does someone turn out good?
I think so, Jake. I think so. I especially kind of taking it from what it was base sets, and just kind of noticing that there wasn't any animals, there wasn't nothing purchased, so it did kind of feel like everything was sort of just slapped down a little bit. So just kind of going back and restructuring this one on the hillside, actually allowing the farm to have its layers and that grade elevation change, definitely I feel turned out a lot better. So
I agree. Well, I think that's going to do it for this one. Hopefully everyone enjoyed that. If you do want your farm to be fixed by us, then make sure you follow the rules in the form. And King, I think that's it until the next one.
I believe so.
Can you picture you and me in the darkness, kissing, touching? Kill the light.